Ciao, y'all. This is Deidre and Lowell here at Italian Cowboy in Rockford, Fulton, Texas. Thanks for joining us. Today, we are going to talk about some of our favorite Italian hard cheeses. There are many cheeses that we could cover, but we are going to focus on four: Parmigiano Reggiano, Grana Padana, Pecorino Romano, and Piave. So in the last class, we talked about Parmigiano Reggiano and did a quick overview of that. And so we won't spend a lot of time talking about that in this class um, because we've already covered it.
See the last class.
So see the last class for that. One thing though I will add, you can see we've got a beautiful piece of Parmigiano here. You can see this beautiful rind. When you buy a real Parmigiano Reggiano, do be sure to reserve the rind. You can even freeze it and use it for seasoning beans, stews, soups, and all that sort of thing.
Adds a lot of umami.
Adds a lot of umami flavor. So we'll head right on over here to one of Parmigiano Reggiano's lesser known cousins, but equally delicious, Grana Padano. Well, would you like to talk a little bit about Grana?
So Grana Padana and Parmigiano are very similar, and in fact, if you go to a fancy, Italian restaurant in the United States, oftentimes they won't use Parmigiano because it is relatively expensive. But Grana has a very similar flavor and is a little less expensive. It's a little less expensive for a couple of reasons. While it's made the same way, it's made in a much larger region, so there's a lot more of it. It's also not aged as long. Generally, Parmigiano, as we mentioned, has to be 12 months old to be released. Grana only has to be 9 months old to be released. So therefore, there's not as much time in preparation. And a lot of the Parmigiano that we have in the United States at a specialty store is 24 months old, whereas the Grana at 9 is it's a little softer, but has a lot of great flavor. It's a really good thing to use in stead of Parmigiano, in case you want to, use it on it's good grated on pasta. It's really great on a cheese plate because it's a little softer. And
I think that covers it. Yeah.
And that's Grana.
And one more thing is that Grana, it dates back. It's an old cheese. It dates back to I think the 12th century actually, and it like Parmigiano Reggiano. It is what's called a PDO cheese, which means it has a consortium. It is regulated as to what can go in and how it's made to ensure good quality. And you would historically typically find this made in northern Italy, particularly Lombardy, around the Po River, though it certainly is made outside of that region. But just to give you a sense of it. So check out Grana. And then we will move on to another of Parmigiano's lesser known cousins, but equally delicious, Pecorino Romano, which actually dates back to Roman times.
Yeah, actually, the Romans used to give it to legionnaires as they went off in battle because it's such a long-lasting, hearty cheese. It's unlike Grana and Parmigiano, which are cow's milk cheeses. Pecorino Romano is a sheep's milk cheese, so it's got a little of that sheep sort of funkiness, sharpness. It's also saltier. It's aged a little less time. It only has to be aged 5 months. Most of the Pecorino Romano that we get in the U.S. is about 9-10 months old. It's just, again, shards really well, great grating cheese, but particularly if you're a fan of something a little more flavorful, if you like a sharper cheddar, or if you like something that's got a little of that funkiness to it, the Pecorino Romano is a fabulous cheese plate cheese. Don't confuse it with Romano or Pecorino, as we call it here in the United States, either one of those. In the United States, the cheese does not have to be made out of sheep's milk, so it can be a cow's milk cheese that they then sort of put a little food coloring in to make it, look white. It could actually be also a goat's milk cheese. It could be a sheep's milk cheese, but when you get a Pecorino Romano, particularly look for the one that's got the black rind on it there. It's either made in the Roman region of Lazio, or a lot of it actually now is in Sardinia, where they have a lot of sheep. But Pecorino Romano is just a fantastic cheese to really bump up the flavor of anything from grated pasta to a cheese plate.
Absolutely, and like Parmigiano and Grana, it is a PDO cheese, so it's regulated inspected and controlled as to what can go into it and how it's produced. So again, you're getting that quality control, a great cheese to add to your lineup in your kitchen. So definitely check that one out. And our last cheese, one of my personal favorites, as many of you know, is Piave, which is often compared to Parmigiano Reggiano because of its nutty flavor. It's also a cow's milk cheese, and it basically it's in, you know, 5 varieties depending on how long it's aged. It is again a DOP cheese, so it is regulated and controlled in terms of how it's produced, where it's produced, and the quality of the product. And it comes from the Dolomite area in the Veneto area of Italy. And you can see, Lowell can point out here, we've got you'll see this label when you go to see a Piave. It'll have a blue label or a red label depending on its age. What we love about Piave is you could grate it on pasta, but we actually think it's actually one of our favorite table cheeses. It's fantastic. It's nutty, delicious. It's a crowd pleaser cheese. And quite delicious.
Yeah, exactly. And as Deidre mentioned, it's released at several different ages, unlike Pecorino, Parm, and Grana, which basically have to wait until a certain time to be released. You can actually release that in Italy immediately. They'll have a yellow label. We don't usually get those often here in the United States. And then when it gets to about 6 months, it gets a blue label. It has sort of it's a silky, sweet, nutty flavor, kind of reminiscent of a really good Swiss Gruyere. And then as it gets to this age, which is 12 months, it gets a nice firm hardness, much more like an aged Gouda. Gets some of those same great flavor crystals that you get in some of the aged cheeses. And as Deidre mentioned, because it's sweet, it doesn't really grate as well on pasta, but it's just an amazing cheese plate cheese, particularly, as she's going to say.
With one of my favorite pairings, as some of you know, is that Just Jan's apricot pepper savory spread, which I know some of y'all have had, and we sell it a lot of times with the Piave because it's a great pairing, and it's just it's a cheese that pairs so well with jams and preserves and all of that. So definitely check out Piave. It's a crowd pleaser for your next cheese plate. You'll love it. And last but not least, are wine pairings.
Because you're going to be putting a lot of these on cheese plates, I'm sure. As we mentioned, Parmigiano is a really, really flexible cheese, as is Grana. We like them with a nice red wine. As you saw in the last class, we did a slightly more fruity red. Here, because the Grana's got a little less salty, sharp flavor, we're going to do it with a Chianti Classico. Still has that medium fruit, but a little nice woody, earthy notes. The Pecorino Romano, again, could take, and all of these, if done right, could take a good white or particularly sparkling. But with the Pecorino Romano, we like something a little earthy, mid-weight wine. As we mentioned, a lot of it's made now in Sardinia, so a good Sardinian Cannonau has that medium fruit and the earthiness. And Piave, up in the Dolomites, sort of wedged between Alto Adige and the northern Brazilian area, we love like a nice lighter northern red. Here we've got Tiraldigo from the Alto Adige, but you could choose any of those fabulous Alto Adige wines like Schiava, Lagrein. Nice medium weight red wines go great with that sweet, nutty Piave.
Great sipping wines also for hot Texas summers.
Exactly.
Because they are a little bit lighter. So in each of these, this is just a quick overview, quick introduction. Frankly, we could do a class on each one of these cheese options themselves, because there's certainly a lot more we could talk about. But just to give you a little bit of an idea and a flavor for the options that are out there. So definitely check these cheeses out. You will be glad that you did. So
don't just cook with them. Make sure you put them on your cheese plate.
And have some wine with them. For sure. Chin chin.
Thanks for
so
stopping
much,
by.
y'all.